WTF Live. We are here on Facebook. I am Kim. I work for WindowWorks. I've been working for WindowWorks for about 12 years, and I am the window treatment specialist on staff. And here we have...
And I am Vita Vygovska. I am the owner of Vitalia Inc. Window Treatments for interior designers. We are located in the Philadelphia area, and I am so excited to come to you live today, our second episode, and I'm just thrilled.
Yes. So today we're going to be talking about drapery pleats. So last week's episode, we talked about drapery panels. So this week we kind of just want to, dig a little deeper into what those drapery panels look like at the top. So
perfect.
Take it away, Vita.
All right. So the very first pleat that I'd like to highlight is what we in my company call the double top tack pleat. And go ahead.
No, and yeah, for us at WindowWorks, we call that a two-finger inverted French pleat. Tomato, tomato.
Highlights a really interesting point, because when designers specify their pleats to their workrooms, calling it whichever way they decide to call it, it really doesn't matter what the consumer, the designer necessarily, how they refer to it. It really depends on what does the workroom know, or how does the workroom designate it so that they can make the right thing. And ultimately, I guess the words perhaps don't matter as much as the pictures, which is hence Window Treatment Friday Live, so that we can show you all the pictures.
All the options and what's available. Hi, Renee. Just people jumping in, just saying hi.
Renee. Awesome. Hey. So double top tack pleat. Why is it called double? Because there's two fingers. Actually, so to your point, yes, two fingers. So there's two folds in the pleat. And then we call it top tack is because it's pinched. The tack is at the top. So double top tack.
So, and hey, Lori. So what's great about this kind of a pleat, it's more of a casual pleat. So it's really great that when you want to use more of a casual fabric, or in settings in like family rooms or in your kids' rooms where you don't want to feel like you're being super fancy. So it's a really great option. And it's also a little bit more on the transitional side. So it's not too traditional. We're going to show you some traditional and a little bit more in a couple minutes. But this is a great alternative when you want to go for that casual look.
And another thing we wanted to highlight here, the reason we have two pictures is because the same pleat can look slightly different depending on the fabric that you choose. So here on the left, we have 100% silk. And so you can see how the pleat is very kind of like the fold is very
tailored.
What's the word I'm looking for? Tailored and very crisp. I think that's what it's very crisp. It's very fine. That fold is very pronounced.
Right.
And then on the right, we have a linen fabric. Actually, it was a very heavyweight linen. And this particular drapery panel was not just lined, but it was interlined as well. So we're talking 3 different layers of fabric, then folded, those 2 fingers, and then tacked at the top. But between all of these layers, the pleat, as you can see, it's kind of a little bit more voluptuous. It's a little bit more rounded. It's just not as tailored, like you said, Kim, on the left. So same pleat, 2 different looks, depending on the type of the fabric and whether you line and interline it.
Right. And that goes for any pleat too. It depends really on the weight of the fabric. So things like a velvet, for example, is definitely going to have that more of that thicker, chunkier kind of weight and feel to it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And here, actually, what we wanted to show is a little bit of variation on that double pleat. So whereas before, I'll bring it back, you saw that it was only tacked at the top, and then the folds kind of flared out a little bit. Here we have the pleat. It's also tacked at the top, but it's stitched down by about 4 to 5 inches or so to give that sort of slightly prolonged look.
Now talk to me about this one, Vita. Is it, you still have the 2 finger, it's just instead of it flaring out at the top, you were tacking it down further down?
Exactly. So we're tacking it at the
at the
top,
top,
and
and
we're
then
stitching it all the way down. So the stitch is inside, so you're not necessarily
you
seeing
can
the
see it.
stitching. It's
Okay.
inside, but here the variation of it is that we wanted to make the pleat more pronounced.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to really showcase the pleat. And
Sure.
also another little tip here, another reason for doing it is if the fabric is not necessarily, how do I call it, well-behaved fabric, as we
Wants
sometimes
to
refer to it in the industry, it just
billow
tends to
out.
flare out and billow out
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of do its own thing. I like how hair sometimes does its own thing, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what we do to it. It
Exactly.
could be the same the same thing as we do every morning, but some
Yep.
mornings.
It
So
doesn't
anyway,
want to behave.
so
Yeah.
some fabrics are not well behaved, and so
Right.
in order to kind of wrangle it and make it do what we want to do, we have these insider secrets, this being one of them.
Now, in terms of how long you make it, that there's no rule or anything to that, correct?
Hmm.
Okay.
So it also depends on how badly behaved that fabric
Mhm.
is. If it just kind of flares out and puckers out a little bit, then I would stitch it down by maybe 4 to 5 inches. But if we're working with something like really unruly, then I may bring it down to 6, 7, sometimes even
Okay.
10. Also, it depends on the length of the drapery. If we're working with
Sure.
really, really long drapes, then the longer the pleat, the higher likelihood of that pleat and fold really holding its shape all the way down.
Right. And it's also too when you're working in rooms and a couple of the pictures that we showed in last episode where it's double high ceilings, it making the pleat feel longer just gives it more of that proportionate feel in the space.
Perfect. Perfectly
Yeah.
said. Hmm.
Hey Gina, how are ya?
Hey guys. Okay, so what
So,
we have here is the inverted box pleat. So when would we use something like that? You see that it's very uniform in the front. There's no pleating. There's no any kind of goopy things happening in the
yep.
front whatsoever. It's very uniform, straight, streamlined type of pleat.
Now these pleats are meant to really be more of like a stationary pleat. You're not, you know, using them really for an operable pleat because what happens there is that when you're trying to move it, then it just kind of wants to go back into its place. So it doesn't fold nicely when you're pulling it back if you want it to be operable.
That's exactly right, Kim. You're totally hit the nail on the head there. And we're also showing two different variations here.
Yeah.
So the picture on the left, you can see that you have a rod and you have rings, just like you would have for any other pleat, really. So this particular customer wanted the rod, the ring, the whole thing. The picture on the right, there, the customer did not like the rings. She did not want to see that separation between the rod and then have the ring hanging and then have the drapery under. So she didn't
Mhm.
like any of that business. She just wanted to have something really, really streamlined. So we created that for her with the rod going behind the pleat and installing it that way. So there's no rings involved there.
Yeah, and that's also a nice alternative if someone wants like a contemporary or a more transitional kind of a look because it's very, again, just clean lined and whatnot. And you also have the option too with a box pleat that if you don't want any rod, we can mount it onto a board so you don't even see it.
That's
If the
true.
customer just doesn't want anything and it's more of like a stationary application, you
Mhm.
also have the ability to board mount this kind of a panel.
Very true. And so here, this is
Beautiful.
actually another variation. So this is, these pictures are actually compliments of my dear friend and colleague in the industry. Her name is Karen Lander, and her company
Oh,
is Drapery Design. She is here in Pennsylvania with me, about an hour or so from me, on the other side of Philadelphia. And she was the one who actually introduced me to this pleat. I think she actually
oh,
introduced the entire industry to this pleat. We were talking about it yesterday. She first wrote an article in Drapery Design magazine, I think back in 2014. So that's
okay.
6 years ago, introducing this pleat and really talking about how to fabricate it on the workroom side. And
Mm-hmm.
the idea here, she calls it the ripple fall pleat.
Yep.
I also call it the variation of the inverted box pleat because it's
Oh,
actually it's very similar to this, except that instead of being stationary and the pleats being stretched taut and kept that way. Here, through certain fabrication secrets, not secrets, but methods, I should say, certain fabrication methods, we're able to use the same pleat, but have it traverse on the rod, meaning that it can go back and forth and function on the rod. So if you have a situation where the drapery doesn't have to be stationary, like Kim said in the previous picture, but you have a situation where you need those draperies to open and close on the window, so to function, to traverse, you can still have this pleat, and this is what it would look like.
Right. And we call it at Window Works a ripple fold pleat, and we love using it, especially if you're doing ceiling mounted applications where you want to have an invisible, if you want the rod to be buried into the ceiling, this is a really great alternative, and it's a very contemporary alternative as well. Exactly. Regina said she knew that there were secrets. Yes, there are trade secrets. We're only going to give you some of them.
But, you know, in reality, we're here to really peel back the curtain and shine the light on some of the things that we know, and Kim and I know, we do them every day, 24/7. And our whole reason for this, you guys, is to shine the light and to let you know how we do it, what we do, why we do certain things.
Exactly. Why certain things work, why certain things don't work, the alternative. Yeah.
Exactly. Go ahead, Kim.
Okay, so this is what Vita calls the triple pleat. And see, now you call this the French pleat, aka French pleat. We call this a pinch pleat. So there's literally words for everything. And I know when I'm working with designers and regular just clients and whatnot, everyone calls everything different. So just a reminder again, pictures are the best form of communication, especially in such a visual industry that we are with window treatments. Now, with this one, what happens is where at the top tack or the inverted French where it's pinched at the top, this one is pinched about 3 inches down from the top. So the pleats really like flare out. So this is a little bit more of a traditional look. With this kind of application, you can do it on the picture that's on a rod with rings, and you can also do this on like a decorative traversing rod where there are no rings. That hardware is a different animal, and we'll get into that in another episode. But yeah, so this is more of a traditional look. Now, I do have a couple of designers and clients that like the look of the triple pinch or in pinch pleat, but they feel like the 3-finger pleat is just, it's a little too much. So a lot of times we've even done it where it's just the 2. So just for more of a casual look. So.
Very, very true. And for us as well, Kim, here in, I mean, we're not that far from each other geographically, but here in Pennsylvania, and for us at Vitalia Inc. and for our designers, this is also a very traditional pleat. We use it. We used to use it a lot, actually, maybe 10 years ago, 15. I started 15 years ago. So like when I first started, we used it quite a bit. And it's almost like they didn't invent other pleats yet. If they did, we didn't quite use them as much.
No, when I started at Window Works back in 2008, this was basically like you did this pleat, you added all the fringe and the tiebacks and the whole 9 yards. So the industry has changed quite a bit.
As we all have, and everything, you know, there's nothing more constant than change, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Goblet pleat. Do you guys use goblet pleats a lot?
You know, not like we did years ago. It's something that actually I have one project that we're working on now that the bathroom is a little bit more upscale. So that the designer shocked me when she said, "We're going with a goblet pleat in here." I went, "Okay." It makes sense for the aesthetic of the bathroom, of the master bathroom with the clawfoot tub and everything else. But yeah, it's not one that you often see too much anymore.
Tell our listeners why we call it. And I think this is like the only pleat where everybody calls it the same thing.
Because it looks like a goblet. Yeah.
That's right.
and on Fridays, we're all waiting for that happy hour time.
You know, one of these times we should do this at like 4 p.m. and start the happy hour early. We'll say in honor of goblet pleat, here we are.
All right. Yes, I am totally down with that.
And so we have two pictures here. The first one on the left shows how this goblet pleat looks like on the rod with the drapery panel hanging. It's a very formal pleat, very, very formal. I would say probably even more traditional and formal than the previous.
Exactly.
I'll go back to it, much more even so than this. I think we all can agree on that. And then on the right, I have a little preview of how these pleats are made, actually. And this is a little bit of an advantage of having a workroom right here in our space, because we are both the window treatment specialists to the designers and the workroom combined. And so this is how this pleat is actually made.
Yeah.
Ha.
Oh.
So, so you see these little things all rolled up together? So this is actually what goes inside the pleat. This is Dacron, which is a polyester batting that has been rolled together and held together with tape. And you cut it about 3 to 4 inches in length. You make it about 2 inches in diameter or so, and then you stuff it inside the pleat. And so on the left here, we have a picture of what these little stuffers look like. And on the right is yours truly this past Christmas, so not so long ago, just 5 months ago. We're doing this in May. This past Christmas, 2019, we had an order where we had to do over 100 goblet pleats.
Oh, that's a lot of rolling of Dacron.
I mean, think about it, like roll it, first you got to cut it out, then you got to roll it, then you got to stuff it, then it doesn't want to stay, it keeps coming out, then you got to stuff it somewhere. So this was the time when I am not normally on the workroom floor at the table, but whenever I'm called and whenever the situation calls for it and I'm needed, I am there. And that was the kind of time where, it was all hands on deck. And so it was a bunch of us just standing there stuffing those pleats.
Hey, especially around the holidays, if you have to go out and foot a ladder and do whatever you have to do, it's just, it's all the things you don't see that have to make something, come to life. Yeah,
all the behind the scenes. Exactly.
All the behind the scenes.
Exactly. Hey, Mimi. Oh my goodness. Hi, girl. Hi. Okay. This next pleat we call Gaysick Bleed. Now, the reason it's called Gaysick Bleed is because here, Vitalia Inc. here in Pennsylvania works with this wonderful interior design firm led by Richard Gaysick, and it's called the Gaysick Design Group. And it was Richard Gaysick actually who invented this pleat. He just sort of came up with it. He's a designer and he does just most beautiful work ever. And this was one of the things that he kind of thought up in his head, and we were happy to execute it for him.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I do too. What this is you can see that it's a double prong or 2 fingers or 2 folds that is not just pinched at the bottom and or the top. It's pinched in both places. So it's a very long pleat. If you can think of it as a variation on that double top tack pleat that's stitched down. It's kind of like a way of making a long pleat without stitching it down all the way through.
Right.
So it's just pinched in 2 places. And believe it or not, that pleat is 10 inches long. I mean, that's how long it is.
And again, I mean, it's so unique. I think we might even start introducing the Gaysick Pleat over at WindowWorks, because I remember when you showed it to me when we had our meeting back in February, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. It's always so exciting to see something different and innovative, so it's not the same old thing over and over again. So if you guys like this,
about little innovations here in the drapery business.
So if you're watching and you like this pleat, let's start making it a trend. The grommet. Yes. So this is, I would say for the most part, in terms of like ready-made and whatnot, this is kind of like a universal pleat that everyone you can kind of get it anywhere. But what's nice about this is that if your client or if you're a consumer and you don't want to have the rings and you want just something that, again, is just clean lined, this is going to be a really great solution. Like the picture on the right, where it's hung to the ceiling, where it's tight. Again, it's just simple, clean lined, and I love it.
It's a very contemporary look. It's a
Right,
very clean look, like you said. And the folds are nice and uniform, actually, and
right.
they tend to stay that way. There's quite a bit of a distance between the
Between the
grommets, the
grommets
way we make them. There's quite a bit of a distance. Um, so the fabric has space to fold back and then on the sort
forward.
of on an S curve move forward and then fold back again and move forward. So from that standpoint, it allows the fabric to really hang and drape really well.
And with this pleat, I know a lot of it. I get this question a lot of, can I move it? And the thing with this is once you start to move it, like to Vita's point where the fabric goes back and forward, once you start to pull it closed, it becomes flat like a shower curtain. So this is really more for stationary application because you don't want to be moving it. And not only that, then you're constantly tugging at the fabric and who knows what's happening with the grommet and the pressure that you're putting on the grommet, on the rod and the fabric. So this is a great alternative when you want something stationary, crisp, and clean, and it's the way to go.
That's right. And here is an alternative where you want to have a very similar header at the top,
The
but it
ripple
gives
fold.
you the
Yep.
ability to move. And so we call it the ripple fold header. And I'm pretty sure that's kind of a uniform name. So unlike
Yep.
some of the other pleats that have maybe 5 or 7 different designations, this pretty much everybody calls it the ripple fold. And it's similar to that of a grommet, except that it doesn't have that ring. It doesn't have the hole inside the fabric itself. It's just the way we fabricate it. Again, it's one of those, not secrets, but methods. The
Yep.
way we fabricate it with a special tape, and there has to be a special hardware actually,
A
and
snap.
both of
Mm-hmm.
them and the snaps. And so all of these elements allow us, the workrooms and the window treatment specialists, to create the look for our designers and the end consumers where the fabric and the drape goes in and out in a very uniform way at the top.
I know
So
from the standpoint of if you're using some rods over from Europe, they refer to this. Sorry, there isn't an alternative name. They refer to this as the wave.
okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yes, that's
So
true. I have
there's
heard that.
yeah. So there are certain hardware collections that if you see them saying the wave, it's really the ripple fold. So don't get discouraged, tomato again.
So the picture on the left here, you're seeing the ripple fold drape closed, right, closed on the opening, and the picture on the right shows the drape open on the opening. So this particular project, actually, this was a restaurant that we did out on the main line here near Philadelphia, and we actually this was for the Gaysick Design Group, so for Richard
Okay.
Gaysick and his team, and they had the vision of being able to separate the space, the restaurant where they wanted to create a more private rooms. So we did that with the help of this drape. So
Yep.
you can see that when it's closed on the space, at the top, the folds are nice and uniform and they have this wave or the S curve. And when it's open on the space, it's neatly stacked.
Right. Yeah. And the thing to take note too is that when you're working with a ripple fold, especially if you're using like a non-decorative rod like this, like in the picture on the left, you're always going to see the rod. So there's no way to either with like some of the pleated drapes as opposed to the waved drapes, the rod is always going to be exposed. So if you're looking for something that you can hide the rod, then you want to go for more of a pleated kind of a look.
Renee says it's especially gorgeous in person. Such a great look for a restaurant. Yes, Renee and I have dined there before. We have gone
nice.
on networking events there before, so she has seen it. Yes.
Take a road trip. Yeah.
yes. Anybody. This was actually Main and Vine restaurant in Villanova. So for those folks listening in Pennsylvania, really cannot head on over there at this point. But when things are open up and ease up, head on over. It's a great place.
And that's that, everyone. So we hope you enjoyed this week's episode on pleats. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. We can definitely answer them for you. And then at WindowWorks, we are located in New Jersey, and we service the New Jersey and New York area. And we have a free ebook on our website that we will also link below in the comments, so that this way you could just click on it and get to it directly, where it kind of just gives you its Drapery 101. So if you want to check that out. And then Vita also has a free.
I also have a special resource for interior designers. So at Vitalia Inc., we are a measurement, fabrication, installation, and project management service exclusively for interior designers. We service the greater Philadelphia area. And the special resource that I have for you guys is a free PDF download called 37 and a half window treatment design ideas that you can steal, swipe, and make your own on your next design project. So it's a whole bunch of ideas, pictures curated by yours truly. I tell you what to pay attention to, what to look after, what to look out for. So just a really good resource, and it's free, and you can get it at vitaliainc.com.
And we'll also link this below in the comments.
Awesome.
So be sure to follow us on all social platforms as well. We are on Instagram and obviously here on Facebook, but Instagram is at WindowWorks.
And Vitalia_Inc. We would love to connect with you there. Please follow us, reach out on email, on phone. If you guys have questions, if you have challenging windows, if you want a little bit of help or support, and please allow us to bring value to your next project and support you on your next project.
Totally. And then also be sure to, if you want to keep up with Luann, for the designers out there watching, be sure to follow her at Luann Igara. She's doing a lot of great things now in our new temporary normal of a lot of digital and virtual kind of things. So if you want to keep up with what's going on there, make sure you follow Luann. So.
And actually, if I can do a little plug for both of us.
Sure.
There today, so today is Friday, May, what is it, 8th, I think,
yes.
is the new episode of Window Treatment Friday, the podcast edition. So.
You know what? I will link that too in the comments below, so you guys don't have to go searching for it. So yeah, make sure you listen to that, because that will be really great.
That would be awesome. This was so much fun, Kim. Again, so easy, so great, so effortless. Half an hour of talking just like that. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope it was helpful and educational.
And we'll see you all next Friday at 12. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.